Yes. So this is the example that we are discussing. So there is a flow of air over a flat plate, right? Flow of air over a flat plate as it is described here. Let us take the length of the plate equal to 5 meters. The velocity of air is 1.5 meter per second, and the air enters at 30 degrees Celsius, right? The air enters at 30 degrees Celsius. So in such an example, you are expected that you also draw a schematic diagram like this. I'll paste a diagram which may be drawn, right? So a diagram like this may be drawn just to explain the case or explain the data. So what is happening is now, like it is shown that initial flow is laminar, but then it becomes turbulent. That is what is shown here, but it need not always be the case. If the length of the plate is short enough, it may not convert into turbulent flow, right? But initially, the air which is entering, the temperature is 30 degrees Celsius. So here it is 30 degrees Celsius, this T infinity, and the velocity u infinity is 1.5 meter per second, and it approaches the plate, right? So you can see TA I have written it as TA. Now when uh, yeah, is 30 degrees Celsius, then Pt is 90 degrees Celsius. So the plate surface temperature. So this should also be shown in the schematic diagram that you draw. You can show that the plate surface temperature is 90 degrees Celsius. Width of the plate given is 10 meters, and length of the plate I am taking as 5 meters. Now, what is the velocity u infinity, or I have written it as VA. Okay, you may write it as V infinity, u infinity, right? Or it's written as capital VA here. So that is 1.5 meter per second. Now, you will need to find the properties of air. You will need to find the properties of air in this boundary layer. Now, what is the property is dependent upon temperature. So, what is the temperature that you will take? So, you should take the mean film temperature, and that's nothing but the average of this air temperature and the plate surface temperature, right? So, that is 90 degree Celsius. Now, let me open the property table also. Let me open the properties of air. Right, so properties of air. Okay. So you find it first for 1 atmospheric pressure as it is shown here, or as it is given in this table, and then the pressure that we are going to consider here is 1.5 atmospheric pressure. This is one standard atmosphere pressure. So you are talking about 60 degrees Celsius temperature. So you will refer to this row, right? You will refer to this row, and so the density is, you can see, read 1.0594. You don't need enthalpy or entropy. You may need, if you need Cp, then it is 1.008. The ratio is given, then the sound velocity, etc. Viscosity is one thing that you will need. So that is 19.95 multiplied by, this is micro, so multiplied by 10 raised to minus 6 Pascal second or Newton second per meter square or kg per meter second. They are all one and the same units. And thermal conductivity, if you need, it is 28.42, but it is milliwatt per meter Kelvin. So because it is milli, when you use this value 28.42, you will multiply it with 10 raised to minus 3, right? So 28.42 into 10 raised to minus 3 watt per meter Kelvin is the number that you will use in your calculation. Okay, so you have to fetch the properties from the, you have to fetch the properties from that table. Okay. So what is the density? It is close to what you read from there, right? So that rho is 1.0593 kg per meter cube. That's the density of air. But now this, you are talking about the air pressure equal to, you are talking about air pressure equal to 1.5 atmosphere, right? So 1.5 atmosphere. So density you have to get by the ideal law equation, right? P upon P1 upon rho 1 is equal to P2 upon rho 2 at the same temperature. So this is what you get. It just 1.5 times the density at 1 atmosphere, right? Then the dynamic viscosity is not affected by pressure. Whatever you read at 60 degrees Celsius, you will see that it is around 1.996 into 10 raised to minus 5, or it is 19.96 into 10 raised to minus 6, right? So that's the density dynamic viscosity that you are going to use. Now you first want to, what do you want to find out? You want to find out shear stress and then the thickness of the boundary layer, etc. Now in most of the example you will first need to know whether the flow is laminar or turbulent. Now in this case, flow over a flat plate, if the Reynolds number exceed 5 into 10 raised to 5, then the flow is said to be turbulent, right? That's the number that you will accept. Though in different literature, you may find different numbers starting from 10 raised to 5 to 3 into 10 raised to 5 and 5 into 10 raised to 5. But in our case, we will be taking 5 into 10 raised to 5, which is the value which is also used by Incropera and David. So that value we will be accepting. So first you need to find out the Reynolds number. So Reynolds number is nothing but rho into velocity into length of the plate. So what is the length of the plate? It is 5 meters. So those values you have to put here. If you want, you can solve the example along with me and confirm whether you get the number that I am showing or not. Like there are chances that I may make some mistake somewhere. I may have written some parameter wrongly somewhere, right? So in that case, you can check whether whatever I am showing is correct or not. And then after this lecture is over, some minor modification in the data may be done, and you can solve the example once again, right? If you want, I can do that for you. I'll change the things a bit here and there, and you can solve the example again, just to make sure that you have really understood the procedure. So as I have been telling that the steps are more important, right? Writing each and every step is also important. You may be tempted to skip some steps and do a big calculation in a single go in your calculator, but try to avoid such things. Always do a very systematic step-by-step procedure, because it's the procedure that establishes whether you really know how to solve the example or not. If you skip the steps, then you are not able to prove, in case you are wrong somewhere, that the intermediate steps were correct. So you can you should go step by step and show everything very clearly. So here I have found the Reynolds number and I'm getting it 3.98 into 10 raised to 5. 3.98. Okay, so somebody has pointed out that I took density at 1.1 atmosphere rather than 1.5. So good. Thanks for pointing that out. Uh, okay, so I have to take this density. Yeah, so as I was telling, I may be making some mistake. Now, so in that case, I will have to maybe change the data also. Otherwise, it will not remain. So if I take the density at 1.5 atmosphere, then this exceeds 5 into 10 raised to 5. Then the formula for CF will change, right? So, uh, yeah, so I think when I posted it yesterday, this mistake was there. What I'm doing now is I'm changing the length of the plate because I don't want, in this example, I don't want the formula for mixed flow boundary layer. We'll be taking an example for that also. That is the next example we'll be doing. So as of now, I'm changing it to 3 meters length, and I expect that the flow is laminar till the end of the plate. So if I take 3 meters length, then with this density, also it still remains at less than 5 into 10 raised to 5. So good. Thanks for pointing this out. And this is why it is important that that you like draw means solve the example along with me, right? So somebody if wants to convey something can write in the chat box rather than raising hand, or I think I get the signal, so I read that point, right? So in case you want to convey something, you can write in the chat box. So as of now, I think one mistake which was there I have corrected, and I could go further, right? So I go further. Now the Reynolds number with 3 meters length, right? So make sure that it is now 3 meters. So in that case, my Reynolds number comes out to be it's rho v L upon mu. This comes out to be 3.5 to 10 raised to 5. So it is laminar, right? It has not exceeded 5 into 10 raised to 5. Okay. Now, one question was what will be the critical length of the plate, right? What would be the critical length of the plate? So even I have to change the value of the density here, right? So that will with that only I'll be able to tell you the critical length of the plate, right? So it is less than 5 meters actually, right? So let me see how much it is. It is between 4 and 5, right? So just by trial and error you can of course you don't need to do this trial and error. You can like equate 5 into 10 raised to 5 with the left hand side, that is rho v L upon mu, and that's how you can find the critical length of the plate, right? So how you get the critical length of the plate, right? So that's close to 4.6 meters. So that is one answer. Now this CF, the friction coefficient, right? And this is the average value. So as I have been telling that we are interested in the average values, not in the local values, right? Means the average value represents the whole plate, while local value will represent only one cross section. So finally we are interested in the complete picture for a plate. So the formula, if you remember, is CF is 1.328 into Reynolds number raised to minus 0.5. This is for the laminar region, the average value of CF. So you put your Reynolds number in that and you get CF, right? So it is 2.2219 into 10 raised to minus 3. So that's the value of CF. Right? Normally, when it is average value, you don't need you will not write x. If you're talking about the local value, you will write x. So in that case, you will write CFX, which is half of this. But here it is the average that you have to use. So Reynolds number RE, you may actually write L here. I have used it for air and I have written A, but like when you're talking about the external flow, the characteristic length is L, right? So the length of the plate. So you can write it as REL. So that REL is this number and you put it here, and with the help of the correlation available, you could get CF. So how is this CF useful? CF is useful to get the shear stress, wall shear stress. So wall shear stress. So wall shear stress is CF into rho VA square by 2 or rho U infinity square by 2. So you get this number for CF, for the friction coefficient, the shear stress, tau S, wall shear stress. So it's 3.966 into 10 raised to minus 3 Newton per meter square. That's the number that you get for the shear stress. And you also know the dimensions of the plate. It is length 3 meters and width 10 meters. So basically you are multiplying it with 30 meters square. If you multiply it with 30 meters square, you get the drag force. So this is the force on, because of the flow of air over this plate, the drag force which is applied on the plate is 0.119 Newton. Okay, so this is one important part that you wanted to find, the drag force or the shear stress. Other thing, though we have been talking about boundary layer, so the word has been mentioned so many times, but you hardly have any clue what could be the thickness of the boundary layer, right? We are talking about, we are saying that like within the boundary layer there will be temperature gradient and velocity gradient, and outside that the change is insignificant, etc. But what is the thickness that you are talking about? And it is also perhaps clear in your mind that the boundary layer thickness is very small as compared to the total length of the plate. Order of magnitude analysis, that's the word that has been used many times. So the thickness of the boundary layer is much smaller than the length of the plate. So let's see whether that statement was correct or not. So here, as per the Bloch's solution, the thickness of the boundary layer, the velocity boundary layer, right, hydrodynamic boundary layer, is found, and it is given by formula phi L. So this is the thickness at the end of the plate at 3 meters length at the end of the plate. What is it? That's the highest thickness, right? It will start from 0 and go up to 25.1, right? So that's the number. So this is 25 millimeters as compared to 3 meters, right? So it is much smaller than the length of the plate. Now, the thickness of the boundary layer need not be equal to the thickness of the velocity boundary layer, need not be equal to the thickness of the thermal boundary layer, right? So what is the thickness of the thermal boundary layer? It is given as this delta, the thickness of the velocity boundary layer divided by Prandtl number raised to 1 by 3. So you can put 1 by 3 here, or I have written it 0.3333. You can go on adding 3 3's here. So roughly it will be 27.93, right? So most of the times 4 significant digits are enough, right? You should not go on writing many digits after the decimal point. 4 significant digits are generally enough, right? So I'm using only 4 significant digits because anyway, most of the times you may not be able to measure, like you want to measure it with some instrument, for example. If you can measure it, then anyway it will not be able to measure it less than 0.01 millimeter, right? The list count of the instrument may not be so high. So in most of the times we will limit ourselves to uh, 4 significant digits. You don't need to go on, though your calculator may be showing many digits after the decimal point. You should not be writing so many digits, right? 4 or 5 are enough. Okay, so that's the thickness of the thermal boundary layer at the end of the plate, which is slightly higher than the thickness of the velocity boundary layer. This is around 28, while this is around 25, but they are very close to each other. This is because the Prandtl number has been evaluated here, right? It is nothing but either you find it out as nu, that is kinematic viscosity, upon alpha, that is the alpha is the thermal diffusivity, right? So nu upon alpha, you can find it out that way, or if you write the all the terms for nu and alpha, you will see that Prandtl number is mu Cp by K. So yes, so again, somebody, yeah, okay. Now, none of these are affected by pressure, right? So none of these are affected by pressure. So like the values are as it is available from the table. You need not worry about making any change for the higher pressure. So this is 0.722, and that's how you get the thickness of the thermal boundary layer. Okay. Now the thermal conductivity, I have written it down, and you get it from the table, and don't forget to multiply the 10 raised to minus 3 when you use the value from the table. Now we want to find out what the heat transfer rate from the plate. Why would heat transfer occur from plate to air? Because the air temperature, the free stream temperature of air is less than the free stream temperature of air is less than the surface temperature of the plate, which is 90 degrees Celsius. So obviously there will be heat transfer from the surface of the plate to air. There is a temperature difference. There is a potential available for heat transfer. So that will lead to heat transfer, convective, because the air is flowing with some velocity, and it is at some velocity due to maybe a fan which is forcing the air to move over this plate. So it is case of forced convection, external flow, forced convection. So external flow, when we are talking about that, it is like understood that we are talking about it as a part of forced convection. So there is velocity and the flow is taking place over this. So it is convective heat transfer which is going to occur. So we want to know what will be the rate at which the heat will transfer from the surface of the plate to air. Now, in some way, you have kept the temperature of the plate constant at 90 degree Celsius. It is possible, right? There are two different boundary conditions which are many times given. One is constant surface temperature and another is constant heat flux, constant surface heat flux. These are the two things generally given. Now in this case it is constant surface temperature, right? So you get the Nusselt number. You get the Nusselt number. So this number is 356. You again have the correlation available, right? We had discussed it in the previous class. So it's 0.664 into Reynolds number raised to 1/2, Prandtl number raised to 1/3. So with that you get the Nusselt number. This is again average value of Nusselt number over the complete length of the plate, and you get this number 356.6. Now H, the heat transfer coefficient, is NuK by L. NuK by L. So you put the length of the plate here, you put the thermal conductivity of air here, and you get the heat transfer coefficient, right? You get the heat transfer coefficient, right? So you get it 3.308 watt per meter square Kelvin. That's the unit of heat transfer coefficient. Now this number is actually a very small number. heat transfer coefficient, this 3.3, later on in the chapter on free convection or natural convection, you'll find that this is even achievable in free convection. This is a very, very small number, and this explains or it demonstrates that air is a poor media, not just from point of view of conduction, but even in convection. Most of the times the heat transfer coefficient that it provides are very small, so air is not a good media for heat transfer, or rather it's a good media for insulation, right? So it's this is a very, very small value, not even in double digits, and this is like, if you want to increase heat transfer, then you may have to increase Reynolds number. So it means that you have to increase the velocity of the air. I think that is only the tool available with you if you want to go with air, right? So this is a small value of heat transfer coefficient, and this is the surface area of the plate. So heat transfer rate is what? HA delta T, right? So H, the heat transfer coefficient, which you already found here, and the area of the plate, which is nothing but length into width, and the temperature difference is nothing but the plate surface temperature, which is 90, and TA, it is, which is 30. So with the help of that, you get the number 5.954 kilowatts. So that's around 6 kilowatt from this plate, which is actually a very big plate, 10 meter by 3 meter. So it's a very big plate actually. So even in that big plate, the heat transfer rate that you are able to get is just around 6 kilowatt. Right? So this is the solution for the given example. I hope you have been able to follow it, right? And in case you have some difficulty understanding at any point, maybe even later on you can convey it. So, and I will change the data a bit and give it to you as an assignment. So now I'll go to another problem. So I go to another problem. You can write down that problem. I hope you are able to read it. So you can write it down, and then we'll start solving it. So water scarcity in the city of Ahmedabad has forced municipal corporation to, okay, so this data is available. Write it down, this data. I'll remain silent for a while. You can write it down, and then I'll start explaining this. Yes, so I hope you have been able to understand a bit from this example. Basically, this is actually a mass transfer a problem related to convective mass transfer. So this is the problem of convective mass transfer, and it has been presented as a practical problem here. So what you see is like say you're taking an example of swimming pool and you're interested to know what is the water loss from the surface of the swimming pool. Now, why would there be a loss from the surface of water from the surface of the swimming pool? In regular language, we or layman language, we say that there will be evaporation of water from the surface. Now, what is the phenomena due to which there will be evaporation? Of course, it's evaporation, it's not boiling. There is a chapter on boiling and condensation in heat transfer. So there you will understand better that you are not talking about boiling, you're talking about evaporation. You may be already knowing that also the difference. So from the surface of that water liquid, some water will evaporate even though the temperature is not 100 degrees Celsius. That's because of the difference of partial pressure of water vapor in air is less than the partial pressure that will be there near the surface or at the surface, and that works as a potential for mass transfer. And if there is a flow, it's not pure diffusion, right? There is going to be some wind is going to be going to flow over that. So that actually makes a case of convective mass transfer. That makes it a case of convective mass transfer. So this is the example that we want to take up now, and this example is solved with an assumption of analogy between heat transfer and mass transfer. Now you already know the correlation which is to be used to find the Nusselt number. Even if it is a mixed flow condition case, that is initially the flow is laminar and then it becomes turbulent, right? I had given the assignment, and what is the formula that you can use, the correlation that you can use for the Nusselt number. Nusselt number, from Nusselt number you can get the heat transfer coefficient. But here you are going to find not Nusselt number but Sherwood number. Sherwood number is equivalent of Nusselt number in case of mass transfer, and the correlation that you use for Nusselt number, similar one can be used to get the Sherwood number, and that Sherwood number you can get the heat transfer mass transfer coefficient for that, and it is a function of Reynolds number, and in case of Nusselt number it was Prandtl number, but here it would be Schmidt number. So those numbers have been talked about earlier. So let's start solving this example. So what you are saying is that you have a swimming pool of certain dimensions, right? So this is 30 meters by 15 meters, 30 meters by 15 meters, and the wind is flowing at a velocity of 15 kilometer per hour, and the ambient conditions, because the water vapor pressure will depend upon the ambient condition, it is 38 degrees Celsius, right? It is 38 degrees Celsius and 20% RH. That's the ambient condition. And you want to find out, like, throughout the day how much will be the loss. The assumption is that this condition, ambient condition, remains the same throughout the day from 10 to 5, so that is 7 hours. And you want to find out the loss in this period only, right? You are neglecting the loss in the remaining period. So there are certain assumptions, but still you want to get some estimate, so you have to make certain assumptions if you want to solve it quickly. So swimming pool water may be considered at 5 Kelvin temperature, lower than the ambient temperature. So if ambient is 38, swimming pool water may be assumed to be at 34 degree Celsius, right? So actually this is 42, right? So this is 42. So the water is at 38, right? Water is at 38. So those data have been written here in the first two rows. As you can read, the water temperature 38, air temperature 42. This is relative humidity 20%. This D is the day length is 7 hours. Velocity of air is 15 kilometer per hour, and so that is 4.167 meter per second. Length of the pool is 30 meters and width is 15 meter. Again, the assumption is that the flow is along the length of the swimming pool, right? So like the diagram that you draw will be similar to the diagram that you draw will be similar to like what was drawn in the previous example, right? So like it is not a flow over a flat plate, but you can say it is flow over a flat surface, right? Flow over a flat surface, that is water surface. So air is flowing over that, and this water surface, this may be considered water surface, and there will be convective mass. There will be boundary layer, but this is concentration boundary layer we are going to talk about. Now you need to find out the mean film temperature. So that's the average of water temperature and air temperature. So 38 and 42, so 40 degrees Celsius. So now, whether you are talking about the properties of air or properties of water, we are talking about what is happening above the water surface. So we are going to talk about the uh, properties of air and not water, right? Okay. So at this temperature, 40 degrees Celsius, what is the density? So you can refer to the property tables, right? So I am taking the data such that it is easier to read from the tables, uh, right? That might be the case in even in exams, but in case you get some intermediate temperature, let's say 44, you should interpolate it, or if it is 45, then it's the average of the two values that you can take, right? If if the time is too less, then you may take the value near to the value that you get here, what is available in table, but write it clearly. Okay, so at 40 degrees Celsius, you are going to read the air properties. So at 40, you read the air properties. So the density, etc., the viscosity, conductivity, those are the things that you may need. So you're going to use those things from the table. Okay. So density is 1.127 kg per meter cube. Dynamic viscosity is 1.908 into 10 raised to minus 5 Pascal second or Newton meter per second. And the thermal conductivity is 0.026, and Cp, if required, is 1.004 kilojoule per kg Kelvin. And I also found nu and alpha. You can find nu and alpha kinematic viscosity and this the thermal diffusivity, and then that gives you Prandtl number. But here actually you don't need Prandtl number. What you need is binary diffusion coefficient, right? So that is point. You don't need to worry about this formula. This number is directly given to you. So that is 2.841 into 10 raised to minus 5. 2.841 into 10 raised to minus 5 is the value of binary diffusion coefficient. Diffusion coefficient whose unit is meter square per second. Now what is this number? Binary diffusion coefficient. It is equivalent of thermal conductivity. It is between air and water. Now it depends upon one, the combination of the fluid, and second, the temperature. So from air to water, this is the binary diffusion coefficient. Diffuse at this rate at the given temperature, right? So that's what is this number, and that number is also given to you. Now Schmidt number, you, as I told you, you are familiar with this formula for Nusselt number, right? That is 0.037 Reynolds number raised to 4 by 5 minus 871. This is for mixed flow. Prandtl number raised to 1 by 3, right? Now the formula for Sherwood number is exactly similar, because of the analogy between heat transfer and mass transfer. So that's 0.037 Reynolds number is to 4 by 5. Reynolds number remains same. This 871 is also same, but in place of Prandtl number you put Schmidt number. And what is Schmidt number? Schmidt number is nu upon d. Okay, binary diffusion coefficient. This nu is common, but in place of alpha thermal diffusivity you put binary diffusion coefficient. So you get this 0.596. So rho v L upon mu, right? So I hope I have put the correct values for the Reynolds number and you get the same number, right? So rho is this rho air TF, V is small v here, and LPL is the length of the pool, which is 30 meters, divided by mu of air at TF, that is 40 degrees. So what you get is 7.383 into 10 raised to 6. This is more than 5 into 10 raised to 5. So it's mixed flow condition. It means that, as it is shown here, initially it is laminar, but then it converts to there is transition towards the later part, there is transition to turbulent flow. Now it might happen, and it may, if that is the case, generally it will be mentioned clearly that the flow may be assumed to be turbulent from the beginning. That is, if there is some hindrance to the flow of air, while it is starting to flow over the surface of water, if you put some blunt object, then it might happen that it becomes turbulent from the beginning. So in that case, this 871 will diminish, right? It will be 0. So it's turbulent from the beginning, and you will get the Sherwood number somewhat bigger. Okay, but here nothing like that is mentioned, so you are assuming it to be laminar in the beginning, and then later on there is transition to turbulent flow. So you get the Sherwood number. Now what is the relation between mass transfer coefficient HM and the Sherwood number? Again, it is analogous to Nusselt number and heat transfer coefficient. So here it is Sherwood number in place of Nusselt number. In place of thermal conductivity, it is the binary diffusion coefficient that you have to put, and this is the characteristic length, right? So this is how you get the mass transfer coefficient, which is in this case is 0.00852 meter per second, right? Now this seems to be a small number, but the effect, as you will see, is not that small. Okay, so the way you find Nusselt number, you can find the Sherwood number as it is done. Now you have the mass transfer coefficient. Now you use the mass transfer coefficient number to find the mass transfer rate. What is this mass transfer rate? It is the rate at which rate at which the water will get convected into air. Okay, the right word is actually not evaporation, but the convection of water into air. So H, the mass transfer coefficient, into the area of the pool multiplied by, now what is the potential? what is the potential. If you have like revise the equation for mass transfer, then you know that the potential can be expressed in terms of one, the concentration difference, which is in what? Concentration difference is in kilomole per meter cube, or it can be expressed as a difference of density. But as a difference of density, but which density are you talking about? Which density is it the water density you're talking about? Is it air density that you are talking about? No, you are talking about the density of water vapor in air. Density of water vapor in air. Now this density of water vapor in air at the surface of the water will be higher as compared to the density in the free stream of air, and that's the difference which is creating or providing potential for mass transfer. So there will be mass transfer from the very first layer which is saturated with water vapor uh, into the direction perpendicular to the water surface, right? So now if you assume the air to be an ideal gas, then uh, the difference between free stream and the stream which is saturated, free stream and the layer which is saturated, the difference is this. That is, actually you can take this density as common and just write this as the multiplication as 1 minus phi, right? 1 minus phi. So just think, what is this number? Okay, so this is the density of water vapor in air. It is actually in, you refer to the steam table, though I have not provided you the steam table, I will provide you the steam table. And you know what is Vg, right? That is at given temperature, what is the density, or rather the specific volume of water vapor at a given temperature when it is dry saturated. So that's the density to be taken here. At what temperature? At 40 degrees Celsius temperature, right? So at 40 degrees Celsius, refer the steam table, you will get Vg, and that Vg is to be taken here, and you will get this number. It is 19.319 meter cube per kg, right? So that's inverse of that is density. So that density is to be used here. So that density is to be used, and that's the density in the layer which is saturated, the first layer of water, first layer of air which is saturated with water. But in the free stream, what is that density? It is equal to this RH, relative humidity, into this density, right? So that's the potential difference for mass transfer which you will use, and you get that the convective mass transfer rate of water into air is 0.15686 kg per second. Now this doesn't seem to be a big number, but kg per second is a very small unit of time. You are talking about a 7-hour long day. So let's see how much it is in 7 hours. How much it is in 7 hours. So let us get it in kg per day. That is 7 hours day. So you see that it is around 4,000 kgs per day, and if you assume that the density is 1 liter, 1 kg per liter, then this is almost 4,000 liters in a day. 4,000 liters in a day are lost from this swimming pool at the given condition in 7-hour long day. So this gave you some estimate of how much is the water loss from this water loss from this swimming pool. And what we used is the mixed flow, uh, the correlation for the mixed flow condition, and the analogy between heat transfer and mass transfer. And with the help of that, we could solve this seemingly practical problem of finding the water loss from a swimming pool. So if it is like peak summer and there is scarcity of water, one feels that such a large amount of water is just evaporation loss. We are not talking about any other losses. So if it is found that we can't afford to have such big loss from the private swimming pools, then maybe for the time being, people may be may not be permitted to use them for that period, right? So this brings us to the end of today's lecture.